how has the idea, the thought, the concept of interracial dating showed up in your life, particularly as you were coming into yourself, as you were growing up? Like, what were you raised to think about interracial dating? I ask because, for moi, that old Negro adage of if she can't use your comb, don't bring her home is what I was told.
Oh.
You never heard that, Jarrett?
I've never heard.
Mikelle, you heard it. I see you smiling.
I love black
South
people.
Carolina.
I love
Exactly.
black
Shout out to South Carolina.
Listen.
But yes, if she can't use your home, don't bring her home. And you know, it was just like a common saying around the house, that, you know, folks felt the need to reiterate over and over and over. And so I'm interested for you all, what was the discourse, the conversation, if any, you know, in your own particular communities around Black folks dating, especially white folks? Mikelle, would you like to jump on in there?
I mean, I don't really remember any conversation. I know that I didn't have conversations with my parents about dating that I can recall. Besides, you know, when I came out, it was like, don't bring no man home. So that's all I recall. But, you know, I do remember one Easter in particular. It was the whole family got together, and one of my uncles that I don't think I had met before had a white, like, wife, fiance, something, I don't remember. And I remember being like, oh, I didn't know there were white people in the family. I was very confused because there was nobody else in an interracial. And I don't even mean just black, white. I mean, like, all of us was niggas. So, like, that was very, and she was like German. And so it was very, and like not German, like, oh, I have German, like she, like.
From Germany.
It was clearly she was German enough that like I met this lady one day and knew she was German. Like, and so I remember like the ride home. I don't remember the specifics of the conversation, but I remember that being a whole conversation about this white German lady. But otherwise, I don't really recall like our family really discussing anything like that, because I think it was just so much of I don't think we needed to discuss it, because I think that there were it wasn't like there was anyone who was dating interracially. And in fact, as far as I know, my sister and I are the only ones that dated interracially. Like, my father is one of 4, my mother there's 2 of them, and all of them were with other Black people. So yeah, that's I don't really have, you know, it was never really a conversation with my family.
Jarrett, what about for you?
I would say that for me, it was not ever a direct conversation about do this or don't do that. It was always very much like queer stuff and things about gay folks. It was always in the conversations about other people. Right. Or the conversation about someone you saw on TV, or a conversation about something in church that was always kind of around the idea. I did have one uncle that had a white wife for a while, and then they divorced. And like, I remember we were still close to her even when they broke up. And like, some of us were invited to her wedding when she married a new person. And like, that was the moment when I realized like how different it was, because we were the only Black people at the wedding. She married a white guy. And like, everyone kept coming up to us at the wedding like, oh, hi, you must be so-and-so's family. And we were like,
how'd you know?
Yeah, what pointed that out, right? Like, and so it was like, that was like, as a kid, I remember being like, oh, this is different. But there wasn't really like direct conversation that got saved as a core memory that was like, do this or don't do that, or don't date this person, or that kind of thing. It was always something that I would hear referenced. And then I've dated probably 97% Black people, right? Black men specifically. And like, the one time I dated someone white, I remember like feeling a way about it, like, oh, this is going to be an interesting conversation to have if I have to bring it up with my family, or if I ended up, you know, having them meet friends and stuff like that. I knew that was going to feel interesting.
Quick follow up. Why did you, how and why did you know it would be interesting?
He was like, the memoirs, I'm gonna have to explain this.
Because I knew this episode was coming one day, right? Like, I know that this, like, this conversation, right? I'm always very aware of my story. Well, because like interracial dating is such an interesting, nuanced thing with Black folks, right? Like the ways that we engage non-Black people romantically or even like as friends, right? Because I feel a way about dating people who don't, I feel a way about dating Black people who don't have Black friends, right? If I scroll your Instagram and all the other people are white, that's a red flag to me. I don't want to be the Black friend, right? And have to deal with the white shit. And so like, that's something that has always been on my mind. Mikelle, I can see you want to say something.
Well, because I did when I was in high school, so I started dating early, I'll get that out of the way. And I do remember when I was in high school, not my first boyfriend, because my first boyfriend was Black, but I started seeing this white boy, and I do actually remember, you know, it was never a thing with my family because my family didn't know, but there was a situation where he made it clear that, like, we couldn't let anybody know that we were dating because it couldn't get back to his family because it was going to be a problem. Like, Tre'vell, I don't know if you remember Dixiana, but, like, that was the part of town he was from. So he was like, oh, no, we can't be. And, like, I knew what that meant. And so, which was funny, a whole other conversation because they were, like, fine with him being gay.
But the Black thing was a step too far.
But he was like, they were not going to be fine with that.
Absolutely not.
Well, and so I know that's not what we're talking about.
They said the white devil is a lie.
Well, that's not what we're talking about. But I do remember that. So there was a thing. It just wasn't with my own family.
Now I want us to, we've set the stage about like how perhaps our upbringings might be informing our positionings in these discourse. At least that's what popped in my head and the reason why I asked that question. Now I want to move into each of your individual experiences with this topic of interracial dating in community, right? Around other Black queer folks, right? Like I said, we've been having this conversation about the interracial dating thing for a little minute. Right. And it pops up and it has various waves. And Mikelle, one of the reasons why you are here, although I asked you before I remembered this particular reason as to why you should be here, is because when I was at Extra Magazine, you wrote a piece about Justice and Nick, who are both Black gay boys, and their particular relationship. And a piece of that article, we'll drop it in the show notes. A piece of that article talks about, right, this conversation around interracial dating, around the lack of what seems like, the lack of Black gay couples, Black queer couples, right, in the industry with a particular level of success and visibility, and how, because of that, right, so many folks, even in this discourse, always feel away when we see another Black gay man in particular, Black queer man in particular, in a relationship with somebody who's not Black, specifically white. And so my question is, in your own individual communities, like, how have you seen this discussion pop up, and what stands out to you from what folks have been saying around you? We'll start with Mikelle.
Let me start with Mikelle. Okay, so
because you the guest.
It's really interesting because in like real life, at least the girls I know and talk to, like, we don't talk about this unless it's like a discourse elsewhere. Like, It is interesting because I do have friends where it has come up. We have chatted about it very, we don't really go into depth. We chat about it very shortly. People kind of say how they feel about their own personal dating experiences. I have a lot of Black gay men in my life who are like, no, I specifically date Black gay men. Like, that is something that I make a very conscious effort to do. And like, we have discussions about that. But, we don't really discuss in the ways that social media does, discuss, whether or not there are enough celebrities that are Black and gay. It has come up in passing, but it's just not something that we, I think, put a lot of weight on, which is a part of the discussion that I think Duran was kind of getting at. It's just that, like, the reality is whether or not we see that at that very specific level, which we can have a conversation about the worthiness of that and what that means or whatever about that level. The reality is that, like, if you are in community with other Black, gay, or queer, I wanted to note before that justice is queer, not gay. But
received.
If you are in community with other Black, gay, and queer people, the likelihood that you know personally,
absolutely,
Black gay couples or Black queer couples is high, right? And so whether or not you see it at that specific level does not mean that you don't see it and you don't know it's possible. So I think that is why we don't discuss it, because
we see it.
I'm in community with Black gay people and I see them with each other. And so, like, I don't, like, yes, we can theoretically discuss the celebrity or whatever, but, you know, it's not really pushing me because, you know, I know it's possible because I see it, you know, not on TV, but literally, you know, at clubs, at parties with me.